Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. This is your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire Magazine, the premier inspirational magazine for women, celebrating 10 years this year. I'm so excited about that. I'm also the 6-time best-selling publisher behind the boutique publishing company, InspiredLivingPublishing.com, which is dedicated to giving visionary female entrepreneurs, coaches, and health practitioners a voice and a high-profile media and publishing platform to share their wisdom, enhance their expert status, and bring their brand out of the shadows as a published author. All my brands, including this show, are dedicated to inspiring women to live their best lives. And welcome, because today we're going to be talking with best-selling author Alex Bratty about getting unstuck so you can create the life you really want. You know, so many of us walk around living the lives and working the jobs that we think we should. We're always shoulding on ourselves. And we start to think that life has to be this way, that we should just suck it up and get on with it and be happy with what we have. And for many of us, myself included in the past, we question if true happiness is ever possible or just something that happens in the Hollywood movies. We wonder if we can ever find the answers to the questions we've been asking our whole lives. Or maybe we just feel that something is missing because we feel empty and unfulfilled. But, as Alex is about to share, the truth is it doesn't have to be this way. It is possible to create the life you really want, and you really can have it. Best-selling author of From Chaos to Clarity, Getting Unstuck and Creating a Life You Love, Alex Bratty works with executives, business owners, and aspiring entrepreneurs to help them find the clarity they need to chart a course to success and financial freedom, building a career and business that they love. Alex has over 15 years of business experience, MBA, and everything that comes with it, and is familiar with most work environments, having worn multiple hats along the way, from management level in a Fortune 500 company to solopreneur of a six-figure company to partner in a multi-million-dollar firm. Today, Alex is a professional speaker, business and success coach, and is living her dream life, the one she envisioned. Welcome, Alex.
Good morning, Linda. It's great to be here with you.
I am super excited because, like many of my guests, your own journey and personal transformation is what has inspired the work you're doing in the world now and led you to it. And I want you to take us back, because I'm familiar with your story, but I want you to take us back to that time in your life when you were at the very top of your field, but realized that you weren't listening to your own inner voice or your true emotions, and you weren't paying attention to your deepest desires, and were trying to figure out why you felt miserably stuck in your life. Boy, I've got to tell you, I'm sure this is going to really resonate with many of our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many, especially women, are dealing with this now, where you spend a long time in a career or a certain field and you make it successful, and then you kind of wake up and it's like, really? This is what it is? I don't know that I want this anymore after striving for it for so long. And that's really what happened to me. So I, had about a 15-year career in public opinion research, which meant, putting together surveys, conducting focus groups, traveling all over the country, doing that, and then presenting those findings in strategy meetings. And I really did make it to the top of my field. I was partner in a very prestigious firm in D.C. I had Fortune 500 companies as clients. I worked on presidential campaigns. I was in those meetings with the top C-level execs all the time, sharing my research and what the strategy meant and, how they could implement it to move their business forward. So on the one hand, it looked like, gee, I had it going on. If you saw me from the outside, you would think, wow, I mean, she's got the big job, she's got the money, she's super successful, she's got it all. But inside, it was a whole different story. I was empty. I was not the filled up person that I look like on the outside because, I had sort of burned out in two ways. One was I started losing interest and finding meaning in the work I was doing. I just, over time, it just became less and less important what I was doing to me. It wasn't not important to my clients, but for me, I started to really not be fulfilled by it. And then, of course, I was spending so much of my time and energy on it. I was working 16 to 18-hour days. I was on the road a lot. I was away from my family. And I think I would have been okay with that crazy schedule had I been in love with what I was doing. But I wasn't. And so I had to really take a step back and take stock and say, why am I spending so much of my energy doing something I don't really love anymore? And when it really came down to it, I was staying in it, at least for the last few years, really because that's what I'd been doing. I was good at it, and I was making great money. I mean, I had this voice inside my head, which a lot of us do when you're in that situation, which was, why would you walk away? That would be nuts. You're crazy. Why would you walk away from this? But I had a bigger voice that kept on niggling at me, which was, hey, life is way too short. I know that's a cliche, but it's incredibly true. I lived that. My husband had cancer. We lived through all of that. It's a very near and dear lesson to our hearts that we have learned up close and personal. And I really had to just start listening to that other voice. Life is much too short. Why are you doing something that is really making you pretty miserable? It is time to reevaluate and figure out what comes next. And that's really when it was sort of the tipping point, when I essentially engaged a life coach to work with. And I didn't know what to expect when I did that. I'd never worked with a coach before. I really didn't have, big expectations of what would come of it. But it turned out to be a terrific decision because I was able to sort of have this outside perspective. I was able to start uncovering a lot of the limiting beliefs that I was walking around with and that were essentially driving a lot of my behavior. And once I started to have this newfound knowledge and of self-awareness, it was like the genie was out of the bottle. You can't put it back in. I have this knowledge. I can't unlearn it. And that's when I absolutely realized something's got to change. You can't keep going on like this because you realize it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose to create a life that you really want and love.
And I want to talk about that in more depth because there are so many people used the phrase a moment ago, limiting beliefs. So what were some of the limiting beliefs that you discovered you had been carrying that was sabotaging you from following your truth?
Well, the big one, there were several, but the big one, and I think a lot of us have this one in some way in our lives at some point, not good enough.
Oh,
which,
yeah,
it's a big one, right? And here's how crazy it was. Like I just described, I had all these amazing clients. They loved my work. They were repeat clients. I had them for years. So, when you're in business, repeat clients is, the sign that something's going well.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
And they loved my stuff, but I, every day, would still think, get up in the morning and sort of worry myself over, is this good enough? Was that project good enough? What about this presentation? Boy, what if I'm just not smart enough to take on this new project? And that was coming from me at the top of my field. And so, which is kind of crazy because I had all this outside evidence that it wasn't true. But it's like I used to say to my husband, because he would always say that to me, God, can you get over this already? You're so smart. People love what you do. And I would say to him, honey, it's like skinny jeans. You and everyone else can tell me that I look good in them, but unless I look in the mirror and I believe it and I feel good in them, it ain't working for me. I got to take this.
Oh, I love that analogy. It's so true. If you can't own your truth, it doesn't matter what other people reflect back to you.
Exactly. And they can tell you till they're blue in the face, right? And so
Yes.
it's like they just want to sort of like reach out and kind of like shake you, like wake up and listen to all the, the messages you're getting. But it's so true unless you see it yourself. So that was the big one. And then, other ones that, again, I think a lot of people have these, right? You've got to work really hard to have success in this life. So for me, if that were true, which that's what I was carrying around, it's like, okay, I got to grind out these 16 to 18 hours a day. I got to constantly be busy. I got to constantly be bringing in these clients. Otherwise, what's my worth here, right? Like I'm only as good as my last paycheck that I brought into the company, and so that in and of itself is a limiting belief that drives that behavior. So you're constantly overworking yourself. And it is possible to reprogram those beliefs and start to realize, hey, I can work smart and be successful. I don't have to work hard and be successful. So it was things like that I didn't even realize I had those. I didn't even know what limiting beliefs were till I went and worked with a coach. And that's how eye-opening the whole experience was for me. I thought, everybody kind of walked around feeling like that. But you don't have to. A lot of us do, but the trick is you don't have to. You can get that self-awareness, and you can begin to kind of reprogram all those voices that are going on inside your mind.
It's so true, Alex. I want to dive in even deeper when we come back from our commercial break. And this is Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy and my special guest, Alex Bratty of alexbratty.com. And we'll be back in a moment.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Inspiration for a Woman's Soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM Radio Network.
Welcome back to Inspired Conversations. This is Linda Joy, and I am having an amazing conversation with my special guest today, Alex Bratty of alexbratty.com. And before the commercial break, Alex, we were talking about two of the main limiting beliefs that you discovered that were sabotaging your life. And the awareness you had once you realized what those beliefs were, that, wow, if I've been carrying them, now it's time to shift them. And as you shared, a big step in doing that was what I really tell everyone to do is you started working with a life coach. So continue the story and the journey, because as you realize, oh my God, I don't need to carry these beliefs. I know once we have the awareness, but you can't shift it by just having the awareness, right? You had to put some steps into action to start to shift those beliefs. So how did you start to do that?
Exactly. And actually, this is the process that I write about in my book, From Chaos to Clarity, on how you actually do that, because you're absolutely right. Just becoming aware isn't enough, right? I mean, yes, that's a huge step, but it's not the only thing. It doesn't change them. So, one of the really helpful things is to, if you can, pinpoint where the belief came from, because it helps you start to realize that it's not necessarily your belief and you don't have to keep holding on to it. And what I mean by that is a lot of these limiting beliefs that we carry around, they get programmed in when we're kids, when we're young, and this is how it happens. So we see the adults around us, very often our parents, but it can be teachers or, other figures of authority, maybe even siblings, and we observe and internalize how they act and the things that they say. Because we're kids, that's what we're meant to do. We're absorbing like sponges. And there's no blame here, right? I know it's easy. It's so easy to point your finger and say, oh, my parents did it to me. But I'm not getting at that. There is no blame here. Your parents did the best they could with what they had. They had their own set of limiting beliefs probably, right?
Yeah.
And so some of the things that you heard and saw as a child, they become your beliefs. So if you heard, money's a big one, right? That's one that I often talk about, and people are like, oh, yeah, I did hear that in my house. So if you hear things like money doesn't grow on trees, or, you've got to work hard to get ahead, or even, hey, that's for people who are rich, that's not for us. Or people who are rich are greedy or nasty in some way. That you essentially your subconscious internalizes all that. And as an adult, you may still be carrying around those beliefs without even realizing they're there. So as you sort of uncover those limiting beliefs, it's worth taking a moment to say, did I hear that as a kid? Did I see it? Did I observe it? Because if you can essentially sort of go back to that place and say, wow, my mom did say that a lot. It actually is really liberating, because you're able to say, okay, wait a minute, that was her belief, and that's okay, but does it need to continue to be my belief now that I'm an adult and I'm at choice in terms of what I think and believe? And so when you really look at that, you can say, no, you know what, it's not. It's okay for me to release that, because here's the other part. Is it serving me well? No. Sometimes our limiting beliefs do serve us well for a while, and then they don't anymore, and we have to release them. So really figuring out where it came from and asking yourself, is it still serving me? Those can be very liberating questions to answer that allow you to then begin to release the belief. And here's the key, though. Once you release the belief, you create a void. There's a vacuum now. You've got to replace it with a new belief, and that new belief has got to be obviously something that serves you well, but also something that you actually find credible, that you can wrap your mind around, you can wrap your arms around. Because if you go from, money doesn't grow on trees, we have to really scrimp and save, to, oh, money is everywhere, I feel abundant, that may be a bridge too far. And immediately, that voice inside your head will come in and say, don't be ridiculous. That's not your truth. That's not what's happening in your life. And so you kind of undermine your wonderful efforts to sort of do this reprogramming process. So you've got to modify those beliefs. You've got to, maybe you say, I'm in the process of finding abundance in my life, right? You modify them so that they feel real to you, and you really can start to embrace them and take them on. And once you have those new beliefs and they feel good to you, that's what you want to start focusing on. And really every day, reading them, even saying them in the mirror, that's very powerful, to really reprogram them and essentially replace all those other limiting beliefs that you originally had.
I love that, because I can envision having that void, because it was something that was a part of you for so long. It was a part of your energy, your thought systems. And I love what you said, that we have to replace it with something positive and something that brings us closer to the direction we want to go. And that must feel so empowering. I know it was for me. It feels so empowering to have a different set point. It's almost like we're rebooting.
It is. It is like a reboot, and I love that you use the word empowering, because it is. It's truly empowering. And the other piece that, in my journey became such an empowering piece for me was the idea, this concept that we create our own reality. Now, I have to say, when I first learned that concept, I was in denial. I was really, I was hostile about it, because my reality at that time was not something I liked. So when I have someone in front of me saying, hey, you're creating it, I wanted to say, well, what do you mean? I don't even like it. Why would I have created a situation for myself I don't even like? But it's true. The decisions that we make, the choices that we make, they do lead us to where we are in that moment. Now, here's the empowering piece, though. If you can wrap your mind around that concept and embrace it, it means that you can reboot, Linda. You can essentially draw a line in the sand and say, okay, up until this point, I kind of didn't understand that concept, so I was creating by default, right? I was going along because I thought I had to, or I was, living my shoulds. I thought I had to do this thing, so I just made these choices and just, it may have been I was on autopilot. I just was, by default creating. I wasn't aware. But now I really do understand I can create the life I want. I can create the business, the career that I want. And when I take that on board, I'm putting myself squarely in charge of my own life. I'm taking responsibility for all the choices that I make, whether they are thoughts, whether they are decisions, whether they're things that I say, my actions, and I get to choose. I really get to create my life. So for me, initially it was a struggle to embrace that concept. It was kind of like a bitter pill to swallow. But once I did, it was so empowering because I could say, wow, that's awesome. I do get to create my own reality. Guess what I can do with that now that I'm aware of that? Wow, I'm going to make much more conscious decisions. I'm going to be so much more deliberate in what I'm creating for myself and the path that I'm choosing to walk down.
Oh, I love it. And you said something, living your shoulds. You used that phrase, and I know that's what I did for many years on my path, especially when I first became an entrepreneur in 92. It was every decision was made. Well, should I do this? Should I do that? What will they think? What are others doing? And I lost my way. I lost my voice. And it wasn't until I did what you said, which is reconnect with myself, release all the old stories that were making me live my shoulds instead of living my desires.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, here again, so many of us are shooting all over ourselves.
Oh,
right? Yeah, because, again, we sort of grow up with these, there may be expectations of us, I should go to college and become a lawyer, or I should become a doctor. That's what is expected of me. And if you keep following those shoulds, you end up living someone else's life and not your own. And you will end up in that very uncomfortable place where you're miserable. You wake up 10 years later and say, gee, this isn't what I want, And I think the other thing about should is when we say should, and I tell my clients this, like, hey, what's your language? Really start to have a little red flag flip up in your mind when you hear yourself saying should, because it's a word that we use a lot, and we use it without even realizing. But when you do it, start paying attention, because should can also be us needing to do something rather than wanting to do something. So, for example, are you agreeing to take on a project for a friend because you really want to and it's something that excites you? Or are you doing it because you have this need to prove that you're the great friend, that you're always there? It's kind of like this needy energy, like I've got to show that I'm really good, or that I am needed, in this friendship. And so when we come from that place of should or need, we're often imposing constraints on ourselves that are not real. And we're allowing others to direct what's happening in our lives rather than us making a conscious decision about it. So, start to notice your language. Start to look for when you say should, and pause for a moment when you say it and think, okay, wait a minute. Is that should because I'm feeling the need to do something and it's kind of a needy energy? Or do I actually genuinely want to do this, right? Is it someone else's expectation of me, or is it what I want to do? Just take that pause and sort of do a little self-analysis before you just proceed blindly into saying yes to whatever it is and following that should.
I love that. Take a pause, because when you said a lot of us follow our shoulds, for me it was what you said. It was, I should go grocery shopping instead of taking a break to nourish my soul, because that's what others would expect of me, and I can't let them down. But the truth is we have to honor ourselves in the decision-making process. And that was a big one for me. I could release the shoulds when it came to my own stuff, right? But if I felt like I was going to let someone down, or based on their projected role of how I should be, that was the hardest should that I had to work on. Did you find that in your journey or with your clients?
Absolutely. Thank you for raising that. I think you hit the nail right in the head there. Yeah, that is the most challenging piece. And I think you used a really important word, too, projected, because when we get caught up in that should based on what we think others want or expect from us, we are projecting what we think they want or expect from us. And I love your example, right, to go grocery shopping. I've done that, even with my husband. It's like, oh, I should go and get, like, the fresh food or whatever. But, if I actually stop and talk to him and say, gee, honey, like, I'm really tired and I was going to go grocery shopping this afternoon so I could make us dinner, but do you mind if we just do takeout tonight? Like, I'm tired. I just want to relax. You know what he says? He says, of course. Why would you even think of going grocery shopping if you're feeling that way? So the whole expectation that he, expects me to go grocery shopping and make dinner and whatever after, a long day of work, that's all in my head. It's not what he's thinking. It's not what he wants. He doesn't want me to do that. So you do have to watch yourself, like you're playing out these movies in your mind, but they're not even real. You're the one creating them. You're projecting them. And the other person or people that you're kind of, running by, like the sort of the expectation of where that's coming from, they may be thinking something completely different. And that's where simple communication obviously can be really powerful. It's just communicating where you're at and if it is, asking permission, is it okay if I don't do this? Do you mind if I kind of take a break? Boy, I've yet to hear people say, oh no, the person I talked to was really adamant that I had to keep on grinding along. I mean, 99% of the time that other person that you were sort of living up to that sort of projected expectation is looking at you saying, well, of course. Why wouldn't you do what you want to do? Go for it.
It is so true because it's a story that we've taken on and told ourselves. And like you, my partner Dana, we've been together 20 years, and thank goodness he was so strong in his sense of self when we met at a time when I wasn't strong in my sense of self. And there would be moments like that where he could feel my guilt because I was shooting all over myself. And we had to create a language between us because I was trying to shift how I showed up, not just in our relationship, but in the world. And I used to have to ask him, if you see me doing things or saying things that are an old story of mine, I need you to say, Linda, I think you're in an old script because that's not us, or that's not you, or that's not me. And I'll tell you, the moment he would say it, I'd go into that reboot, that pivot going, whoa, I don't want to take this old story into my new story. But until you have someone that can hold a mirror up, which is what you do as a business and success coach and what you had your life coach do for you, sometimes we just need someone to put up that mirror and go, what story are you in right now? That was major, and it was a big breakthrough for me as well as my relationship.
Yeah, I love that. And isn't that, that's another key piece of this, right? It's like, yes, you've got to do your inner work, no doubt. Like, you've got to sort of pinpoint those limiting beliefs. You've got to reprogram them. You're the one who's got to pay attention to your language and the choices you're making, the thoughts that you're having. But the other piece is, who are you surrounding yourself with? Like, who are you spending time with? You want to be spending time with people that are lifting you up, not dragging you down. And what you described with Dana is just such a perfect example of that. I mean, here you had a partner who was able to hold up that mirror in a loving way and say, you're in the old script, Linda. I know where you're trying to go, but right now you're defaulting back into old behavior. And so it was just that little trigger, just him saying that helped you get right back on path of where you were headed to. And I think it's true also, just, the people that we associate with, even if it's not your partner, right, that person that's closest to you, but who do you spend your time with, right? Like as Jim Rohn, the famous motivational speaker, says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So look at your circle and see, am I spending time with people who, also want to be sort of improving themselves, striving for, personal development, striving for creating the life they want, or am I kind of surrounding myself with negative Nellies? Because that negative Nelly will pull you down. You can do all the inner work till the cows come home, but if you're spending a lot of time with negative Nellies, it's going to counteract all that wonderful work you're doing. So I think that's another great point, is really be careful who you spend your time with and who you share your dreams with and who you share those inner thoughts with, because those are sacred to you. You are the one that's doing all that wonderful work to, reprogram the limiting beliefs, to create the life you want, to create the business or the career that you want. And the last thing you want is someone trampling all over those dreams and making you go into self-doubt when you are working so incredibly, diligently to, boost your confidence, to believe in yourself, to move forward.
It's so true, Alex. I want to talk more about that, about cleaning up the energy in our life when we come back from commercial break. And I will be back with Alex Bratty of alexbratty.com in just a moment.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Experience a homecoming to your heart. In the foreword of Dr. Deborah Rebel's new book, Being Love, How Loving Yourself Creates Ripples of Transformation in Your Relationships and the World, Marcy Shimoff shares, the answer to our inner longing isn't finding love, it's being love. The practices that Dr. Deborah presents in Being Love are keys to opening your heart and receiving your divine birthright as a physical manifestation of love. Her techniques, developed over years of successful private practice with her clients and from her extensive training in multiple disciplines, are accessible, compassionate, and effective. Her message is powerful, and if you allow it, will change your whole life. Order your copy of Being Love today at beinglovebook.com and receive over 45 transformational gifts. Being Love is brought to you by Inspired Living Publishing.
OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Me, a cat, moving in with a new human. It took a little getting used to. She has these weird games she likes to play, like this giant feather. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. She sticks it in my face. I swat it away. It's almost like she thinks I enjoy it. But seeing how much fun she gets out of it, well, I guess it makes it all worth it. Humans.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Free your mind. Expand your soul. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. We're going to continue our conversation with Alex Bratty, and this is your host, Linda Joy. And right before the break, we were talking about the importance of clearing up the energy you have in your life. And sometimes that means the people you spend time with. And I know for so many, and Alex, I want to dive in deeper to this because it was something that happened in my life. Sometimes that includes family members. And I want to bring that up because it doesn't mean you don't love someone. It just means you love yourself enough to put up boundaries if there's an energetic vampire or drain in your life, even if that means that person is a family member. So I wanted to go that deep, Alex, because I think we all have someone in our lives in that capacity, and a lot of people in my circle, women, struggle with that. Like, what do I do? We cannot give our life force energy away to anyone. So have you witnessed that in the work with clients, or maybe even in your own life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I just was having this conversation with a fellow business coach, actually, and she was describing, when she was first starting out, like, a lot of us when we first start out, I mean, you've only got one or two clients, or maybe you've got zero clients, right? And it is very much all about mindset and believing in yourself and building and, showing up every day. And she had this uncle that would constantly, every time she saw him, are you a millionaire yet? What's going on with that business you're building? And it used to trigger her all the time, right? Because that, being a millionaire was so far from where she was at. And she felt like he was almost like picking at a scab or a wound, right? And just like deliberately going after that piece, right, that was just so tender for her because she was just starting out and really trying to build this. But she realized, and this is true, if you're triggered in that sort of way, right, when you have family members, they may say something and it kind of triggers this reaction in you, it means you've got a little bit more work to do. It's actually not them, it's you, right? When you feel that trigger, you're like, gosh, why will they just not leave me alone? Like, I'm trying to do my thing here. Stay out of my way. So, yes, she did sort of spend a little bit less time with him. But she realized, it's my stuff. Like, I realized that it's my own self-doubt that's showing up here that's triggering me. And one of the things you can do, sort of if you're dealing with one of those sort of triggers or you have that family member that seems to just always, push your button in a way that just, it's like, woof, 0 to 60, you're like off the handle with them, is next time you're going to see them, imagine yourself in your own energetic bubble. Right? You have this bubble around you. It's your energy. You're in a good place. You're in a high vibe place. And they don't get to come into that bubble, right? Almost think of it even like personal space, right? We all know what personal space is. You can't see it, but when someone steps in your personal space, it makes you take a step back, like it's uncomfortable, right? Think of your energy bubble as almost being that personal space and really visualize it. See yourself inside it and protected. And you get to choose the energy that's in that bubble. So if they are coming at you, that bubble is protecting you. You don't have to take on their energy. And if the bubble feels claustrophobic, because for some people, especially when I'm working with clients, they're like, ooh, I don't want to be stuck in a bubble. That feels kind of like I'm trapped or something. Then do something similar. Think of kind of in front of you, it may be a beautiful rose that is, 3 feet in front of you. That's the boundary of your energy. People don't get to cross that, and your energy out to that rose is your energy. You get to choose it. You get to hold it. And any negative energy that's coming in, it just gets absorbed by that rose. It doesn't go beyond that. So just a couple of little, simple little techniques that you can do. Just get your mind in that space before you encounter that family member. If you know that they're the one that always triggers you, or that they're always going to have that negative outlook or be trying to, pick at what you're doing or tear you down. Create your own energy space and remember that it's there, and you get to choose how you feel. You don't have to take on their energy.
And that's a beautiful way to describe, very visual, so I was picturing that bubble. And that's something that's funny. I never thought of doing it as an adult, but it's a ritual that I taught my grandson, who's going to be 16. When he was young, I would tell him when he was in a stressful situation to surround himself with a pink bubble. And then I never brought it into my own life in regard to relationships. I heard two things, too. So we can be triggered by someone, and triggered is a good thing. Being triggered is a good thing because it says, hey, you got some work to do because you have a false belief that's causing you to get triggered. Mm-hmm. And for me, while I worked on that trigger, right, I had to sometimes, until I was strong enough emotionally, physically, spiritually, to also pull back from that relationship for a little while with love until I could heal that part of me that could then be in that presence. But this ritual, if you want to call it, that you just shared is a way to do both at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think if you can pull back and sort of not, engage with that person a lot, that is great. But sometimes we don't necessarily get that choice, right? It could be a family member we see a lot.
Yes.
And, and so we really do have to have a strategy for, how do I deal with, I'm going to see them again at Sunday lunch. How do I deal with this, right? So the bubble strategy or the rose strategy is just a really, great way to deal with that when it comes up, and, you're going to see them. You know it's going to happen. Yeah.
Another one I've used is the inner child. And if I know I'm going to be with someone that usually, and this isn't a judgment, it's just I'm an empath, so I feel energy. So if it's a denser energy, and I'm like, okay, similar to your bubble exercise. If I would know I'm going to see that person, I would envision that I'm not seeing that person. Say it's a 50-year-old male. I'm going to be interacting with that person's inner child and knowing that if I show up in love, that's what the inner child is going to feel, because I believe it's the inner child in their own unhealed wounds that are causing their behavior in the first place. So if I see this inner child instead of them, of course you're going to show up with love and compassion. So then I noticed I didn't get triggered as often because I was shifting how I showed up.
Yeah, I love that, Linda. That's such a great way to deal with it. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. When you do see people behaving in that way, or, just sort of whether they've got to dominate the conversation or they are being negative, it is very often, you're right, it's the inner child that's unhealed. It's that they may be carrying around their own set of limiting beliefs that they don't even realize they have, but it's those inner beliefs, they're in your subconscious, and they drive the behavior and the action. So, yeah, I love that strategy. That's terrific.
Well, for me, it's like you, when you first awakened in the middle of your life going, oh, my God, how the hell did I get here? And we had to keep finding tools, right, until you found that life coach. We had to keep finding tools on our own that work. So I and still am, an avid reader. And I would pick and choose what worked, what felt good energetically to me and what worked, and that was one that worked. But the bubble one is something I love because you can do it anywhere. If it happens at a grocery store, you can call that in. If it happens at a family dinner, you have it, and it's easily accessible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So is this whole journey that you just shared with us, and then working with a life coach, is that when you tapped into and said, oh, my God, this is what I'm called to do, because now you're a highly successful business and success coach that is helping others shift their beliefs and breakthroughs and have breakthroughs so they can start living their life. So I'm sure, like me, you believe that all this happened for a reason.
Oh, absolutely. And, when I walked away from, that long career in research, I really didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I had started doing a life coaching certification because I really did feel this calling that I wanted to serve. I wanted to do something with my life that felt like it was a really positive impact. I mean, not that I wasn't having a positive impact in my previous career, but it didn't feel as meaningful to me as I wanted it to. And so the idea of helping other people was really important. And the more I went through that certification, the more I essentially did my inner work in terms of looking at, what really lights me up inside? What do I love to do? What did I love to do as a child? What do I love to do now as an adult? Really taking the time to dig into that and looking at, what are the skills and the talents and the knowledge? What are all those things that I have? My abilities at my fingertips, how can I combine that with my love of helping people? And so it was all kind of pointing towards coaching. And when I first started out as a coach, I was a life coach. But I rapidly discovered that, the people that were coming to me, they were coming because they wanted help with sort of their career, or they were entrepreneurs building businesses. They naturally were gravitating towards me because I had this business background, right? I had, you had the
expertise and the life experience. And
exactly.
Give me one moment. We're going to cut to commercial break because I get so excited sometimes in the middle of these conversations. So we will be back in a moment with best-selling author of From Chaos to Clarity, Alex Bratty.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you tired of waiting for the right time to live your purpose, shine your light, and share your sacred gifts with the world? Purpose and success coach Stacy Curnow, also known as the midwife for your life, remembers that feeling well. She left a thriving 20-year career as a nurse midwife to successfully and passionately help women give birth to their big dreams. If you are a purpose-driven, spirit-led woman who is ready to break free from your fears and doubts and create a life and business you absolutely love, stop by Stacy's blog at stacycurnow.com for empowering resources, inspiring content, and to schedule a complimentary Live on Purpose discovery session.
Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is OTR-FM, part of the IOM radio network.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations. We are in the middle of an inspiring conversation with Alex Bratty. And before the break, we were talking about Alex's journey and what she discovered along the way and how it led to the inspiring work she's doing in the world now as a business and success coach. So, Alex, you left off saying that it was in your work as previously as a life coach when you realized, whoa, all these people are coming to me for career and business success, and it must have been like a light bulb going off. This is what I was born to do. You had 15 years of high-level experience in the business world, and so it all naturally just came together, and clients started finding you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And so I realized, as I was looking at my client, I'm like, wow, they all are coming for this whole sort of professional angle, if you like. And that's when I realized, well, duh.
Exactly.
Of course, right? I mean, I have all this experience. I have all this knowledge. And actually, the more I really looked at it and worked with clients, and I realized, that really lit me up. Essentially working with people who wanted to build something, right? And so now most of the women that I work with are coming because they are building a business. They're either, they want to sort of make the transition from employee to entrepreneur, or they're starting out in their business and, they want to get all the pieces in place. They want to, master their message. They want to get their sales conversation down. They want to get their marketing strategy in place. And that is stuff that I absolutely love. I love helping them build, and I love seeing the transformation from, hey, I got 0 clients. I'm just, I'm trying to figure this out. It can be confusing. It can be discouraging, to working with them and seeing the transformation to, oh, my gosh, I'm kicking butt. I got, I'm booking clients. Things are happening. I'm seeing my business grow. It's awesome. And I'm creating, this heart-centered, purpose-driven business that lights me up, because those are the entrepreneurs I work with, right? I mean, a lot of them are coaches and creatives. They're building in the online space, and very often they're building their business for very similar reasons that, I got out of my corporate world and started building my own business, because they wanted to do it on their terms. They wanted to have success and financial freedom on their terms, and they realized the way to do that is to essentially take back control, become their own boss, and create that business doing something they love and they're really great at. So that's the stuff that absolutely lights me up. And so, yeah, it became this very natural progression and evolution to move into that and start thriving in that space.
You know, it's funny. I've been doing this for 10 years with Aspire and all my brands that have unfolded since then. And I hear that story over and over again, how when a lot of women thought they were being redirected and doubting themselves in their life, that they end up exactly where they're meant to serve the highest good for those that they're called to serve. And it gives me soul giggles when I hear another woman going, okay, here's where my path was. I couldn't have seen it going this way, you know, if we were in that intellectual planning brain. But we end up, when we follow the calling of our soul, when we follow that, like you said, that inner truth, we will end up exactly where we are to serve, to live our highest and best lives, but also to do the work that can really transform other people's lives.
Yeah, and I love that you brought that up, that sort of the difference between following your inner truth versus that logical place. That's something I've really had to learn, is to not be so much in my head. And here's the thing, you know, as a researcher, I was only in my head. In fact, I was trained to be in my head. So the first day, the company that I became a partner with, I was there for 11 years. And obviously I didn't go in as partner, right? I had to work up to that. So I started as a project director. And the partner I worked for there, you know, I put together this report. I took it into him, and he was reading it. And I had put in there, we feel that, and, you know, something about the numbers in the report. And he looked me in the eye and he said, Alex, don't ever put feel in a report ever again. We are researchers. We don't feel. We don't feel. We recommend, we suggest, we believe, but we sure as heck don't feel. I never want to see that word ever again in anything produced in this firm.
Wow.
And I didn't realize at the time what a big thing that was, but now when I look back on my journey and I've had to learn to get out of my head, that moment I realized, oh my gosh, I was actually trained not to feel. And I spent a long time only, you know, with the measurable, with the tangible. We have to recommend. We have to base it in facts, right? And when you create a heart-driven and purpose-driven business, boy, do you have to tap into your intuition and your heart. And for me, I mean, it's something that I still work on to this day. I have absolutely not perfected that at all. I find myself still kind of going to the head, you know, sometimes having that conversation with myself. What should I do? What makes sense here, right? Like the logical stuff. And so I have a daily mindset practice that I do every morning before I do anything in my business. And I tap into my intuition. I tap in and I ask for answers, you know, whether it's something I'm working on, whether it's a new project, whether it's, you know, guiding a client, whatever it is that day, I look for that inner truth and I look to really continue to build my trust in my intuition and to go with my heart space and what my intuition tells me. So I think a lot of us, especially if you're coming from that corporate world,
it's such an important message
to learn.
And it's such an important message. And thank you for sharing that. I don't want to use the word ritual, that strategy that you use every morning to connect, because it's so important. And this time together has flown by. I know I'm going to have you back on this show again. And I want to invite everyone, please visit Alex Bratty, that's with 2 T's, BRATTY.com, to dive even deeper into everything that Alex has been sharing here today. Learn more about working with her. Take advantage of the sacred offering that she has on her site to support you in living your best life. And Alex, I want to thank you for being here today. I know that we have more inspired conversations coming up in the future. I just love this conversation with you and the wisdom and message that you shared with my audience.
Thank you so much for having me, Linda. It's been an honor to be on the show. Really great fun. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you, everyone, for joining me for Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy. Listen in every Tuesday at 2 p.m. for more sacred conversations with visionary women who are here to share their feminine wisdom to support you in living your best life. For even more inspiration, claim your free subscription to Aspire magazine, which includes over 40 transformational gifts, at subscribe-to-aspire.com. Until next time, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.